Those who teach that the last days begin in 1914 argue that since 1914, a composite sign of wars, earthquakes, food shortages, pestilences, and lawlessness had been on the increase and had plagued the world in unprecedented measure. It is said that these conditions are worse than ever and continue to deteriorate, and it is not that any one of these features have been on the increase, but the composite of all five, which, they say, proves the last days started in 1914. One by one we examine each of these 5 points. Therefore, if we take a tally of these features since 1914, have any of these increased overall? We will mark them as either yes or no. Many experts have not seen an increase in the frequency of wars, and some even argue that the last decades have been the most peaceful time in human history. So we will mark this as no. Famine is nothing in comparison to what it was world over prior to the 20th century. So we will mark that as a no. When we look at the deadly infectious diseases that ravaged humanity in the past in comparison to after the event of modern medicine, we can safely say that pestilence has been on the retreat. Great earthquakes over the long term have not increased since 1914. Crime and lawlessness was much more rapid in other periods of human history. When we tally it all together, none of the features have increased since 1914. In fact, because famine and pestilence has been on the wane, it has led to increased life expectancy and a skyrocketing population. When we look at the history of the 12 and 1300s, we see wars, lawlessness, earthquakes, famines, and pestilence, all in a combination that far outranks the 20th century. These things were so bad, especially the Black Death, the worst disaster in recorded history, that the world population went into a decline. Again, ask yourself, of all the periods of human history, which one would you rather have been born in? For instance, would you rather have been born today or in the 1300s? The facts show that for all the problems humanity has had to contend with, our time has been the best time to be alive in all human history. What is being said here? That we are not living in the last days? No, what we are contending with is the idea that the last days began in 1914 and can be identified by any composite sign. Again, let us read Jesus' warning at Matthew 24, starting with verse 4. In answer, Jesus said to them, "Look out that nobody misleads you, for many will come on the basis of my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will mislead many. You are going to hear of wars and reports of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be food shortages and earthquakes in one place after another." In context, Jesus is giving a warning not to be misled, not to be alarmed by these features, that they do not indicate that the end is impending. Therefore, some view this not as a sign of Jesus' coming or presence, but as a non-sign. When then do the last days begin? Well, according to the Bible, they had already begun in the first century. At Pentecost, the Apostle Peter said in reference to the miraculous gifts being poured out upon those in his time, "On the contrary, this is what was said through the prophet Joel. And in the last days, God says, I will pour out some of my Spirit on every sort of flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams." Hebrews chapter 1 verse 2 says, "But in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son." Therefore, the appearance of God's Son, the Messiah, marked the beginning of the last days. There are many different viewpoints on these matters, and each is worthy research. Full preterists believe that the last days begin in 30 AD and ended in 70 AD with the ending of the Jewish Old Covenant age. Other viewpoints, such as some forms of partial preterism, believe that the advent of God's Son ushered in the last act, or final phase of human history, that will end in a future coming. Jesus was very emphatic about the matter that nobody would be able to foresee the time of his coming. Likely, we are very familiar with Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, that says, Concerning that day and hour, nobody knows, neither the angels of the heavens, nor the Son, but only the Father. And at Luke chapter 12, Jesus said, "But know this, if the householder had known at what hour the thief would come, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also keep ready, because at an hour you do not think likely, the Son of Man is coming." Did you catch that? Jesus told his followers that he would come at an hour that they do not think likely. It would happen suddenly, unforeseen, like a thief in the night, thus the need to be ready. When talking about the destruction of the flood and of Sodom and Gomorrah, Jesus emphasized that these destructions were unforeseen and preceded by the normal affairs of everyday life. His arrival would happen as fast as lightning, not a long, dragged-out period of time. And if you come to think about it, what difference should it make in the life of a Christian when Jesus comes? If he came tomorrow, or a year from now, or 100 or 500 years from now, how would the duties of a Christian alter in any way? At Luke chapter 21 verse 8 it is written, "And he said, See that you're not led astray, for many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and the time is at hand. Do not go after them." Throughout the past 2,000 years, many have come in Jesus' name and said, "The time is at hand." But the warning Jesus gave was adamant, do not go after them. The question we must all ask ourselves is, will I heed Jesus' warning?